Hello, my name is Andrew Mendoza, and today I will be presenting some information about education in the country of Brazil. So here's a map of the country and its states and their borders, as well as some of the major cities throughout the country. As you can see, it's a pretty large country. It encompasses almost the entire eastern half of South America. And its borders touch the borders of almost every other country in South America, with the exception of Ecuador and Chile. So just some facts about Brazil. It is the world's fifth largest country in both area and population. Some of the things it's known for are its tourism, passion for soccer, and the Amazon rainforest. Has a literacy rate of about 86%, rapidly growing urbanization rate, and its economy is largely centered around industrial and agricultural exports, such as iron ore, lumber, coffee, and soybeans. And some history about the development of education in Brazil. It began in the 16th century with Jesuit missionaries. Now, the Jesuits were a religious order that was created to promote and spread Catholicism around the world. And these Jesuit missionaries came with Portuguese colonists to Brazil in an attempt to convert the local indigenous populations. They set up Catholic missions, which began teaching the local natives about Catholicism, as well as regular school subjects such as science, literature, arts, and music, which were being taught in schools back in Europe. During the late 1700s, the Portuguese nobility were overthrown and the Jesuit schools were seized, and educational reforms were introduced, which sort of laid the groundwork for the educational system that is in place today. It was also then that many institutions of higher education or universities were being built in Brazil. So the way the education system in Brazil is organized and structured is pretty similar to how it is here in the United States. Education is regulated by the Cabinet of Brazil through the Ministry of Education, which defines the guidelines and principles education programs should abide by. Local governments are responsible for establishing these education programs following these guidelines using funding supplied by the federal government. Brazil also contains private sector schools, which are of a far superior nature but do cost money to go to. And its schools are divided into 3 levels, with several grade levels in each of these levels. Fundamental education is free for everyone and mandatory for children between ages of 6 and 14, so this would be like elementary or middle schools. Then middle education or secondary school is for students ages 14 to 18. Is also free, but is not mandatory. However, if a student does wish to go on to college or a university, then it is required that they complete secondary school. And higher education, including graduate degrees, is free at public universities in Brazil, which I'm extremely jealous of. So teacher training and qualification. Teacher training is available at universities. They do have degrees that are very similar to teaching credentials. One of the main differences is that you can teach younger children after completing just a few classes, whereas a degree is required to qualify an individual to teach secondary school classes. One thing I thought was very interesting is that there are frequent programs available for teachers to improve and update their skills that are available through universities or other entities. So educational equity in Brazil. For the most part, there is pretty equal opportunities for everybody. However, at the same time, they're not. It's kind of complicated. In Brazil, it is mandatory for all children, despite social class or ethnicity, to go to school from age 6 to 14. With higher education being offered for free at public universities, Brazil has a wide variety of quality higher education opportunities. However, not many of the students in Brazil take advantage of this. Students in rural areas do not receive the same education as those in the cities, which I'll get into in the next couple of slides. This has probably led to the Brazilian education level being low, especially in the public schools. So as far as educational access and diversity in Brazil, I felt that these 3 points summed it up pretty well. As I said before, all Brazilian citizens have the right to a formal education regardless of social class, gender, ethnicity, or any physical or mental disabilities. However, there are disparities in success among different classes and ethnicities. Children that live in rural areas usually have to work to make money for their families instead of spending time at school. Um, and public school facilities in these areas are also neglected and often lack things like plumbing and heating, and funding for other things that schools in the cities might be getting. So many families don't want to waste their time sending their children to school when they don't feel like they're getting the same education. And this has led to many students not being in school for a very long time. White students surprisingly will spend an average of just 8.4 years in the education system, which means that if they're starting at 6 years old, they're only reaching to ninth, maybe 10th grade, while the number decreases to 6.1 years for black students, which means that they're only reaching seventh, maybe eighth grade. So education in Brazil overall, though their university system is highly regarded, the issues of race and economic status in Brazil have recently been recognized as a major problem when it comes to public education. The number of Brazilian children that make it to high school is dropping at a steady rate. Only about a third of school children ever even get to grade 6, which is pretty alarming. And many people complain that it's due to Brazil's inadequate investment in education. And this has led to the majority of Brazil's local labor force being poorly qualified. There are studies that are being done that are showing that there's a direct relationship between race and educational opportunities in Brazil that coincide with social and regional inequalities. And this has led to increasing illiteracy and unemployment rates in Brazil, which has in turn led to even less schooling, as these students must then be involved in the work sector to bring in extra funds for their family. And so many people in Brazil are getting frustrated with this cycle that just kind of continues to go around, where the illiteracy rates and unemployment rates in Brazil are rising, which lead to less schooling, and then families have to make their children work in order to make extra money. So yeah, that's my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Here are my references, and yeah, thank you very much.